Okay, so I'm going to be teaching you another set of listening techniques from the active listening list. By the way, there's more information in the caption that you can study up on active listening. But the set of techniques I'm going to use this time there's three of them. One is, and they're all what might be called reflective listening techniques. So the first one is mirroring, the second one is paraphrasing, and the third one is summarizing. And I'm going to be using all three of them just kind of randomly throughout this conversation with my client, Kimmy. Let me just briefly explain what they are. Mirroring is literally just saying the last word or last couple of words the person said. Paraphrasing, you're taking also a small amount of information, but you're putting it in your own words. And then summarizing is taking a larger swath of information where the person's been talking for a while, and you usually ask them for a moment, you say, excuse me, just let me summarize what I'm hearing you say, make sure I have it right. But all three of those things are reflecting back to the person what you heard them say. And I don't know of anything in listening that is more powerful than saying back to the person what you heard them say. Be careful not to sound pedantic or weird or like a therapist when you're doing it. There's an art to it, but you'll see how I do it in this demonstration. Okay, so Kimmy, my client, who's really my daughter, is going to demonstrate this, and we're going to talk about a very traumatic and difficult event from your childhood, and that involved being suspended from school. And then after you were suspended from school, and I always felt like, yeah, you should have been suspended because you were smoking and no smoking allowed. But you straightened your life out during the months in between the suspension and when school started again. It was about 6 or 8 months. And you straightened your life out, and they still wouldn't let you come back to this private Christian school. And it was a grave disappointment. So I want to just talk to you as my client about that. All right, and I'll be demonstrating the mirroring, the paraphrasing, and the summarizing in the context of this conversation. So tell me what happened with your suspension when you were in high school.
So I actually got caught smoking in the dorm room. I got suspended for smoking cigarettes in the dorm room. What they didn't know is that it was actually marijuana.
It
But
was worse than what they knew.
well, no, I mean, really, they're both, I guess, things you shouldn't be doing. So I think honestly, cigarettes would have been worse in terms of like damage in the building. But yeah, it was something I wasn't supposed to be doing. And obviously we don't do that at school, let alone in the dorm room. So I got kicked out for that, and um they told me, if you can prove to us that you have changed, we will let you back when the semester starts again. I think I got kicked out I think it was right at the end of that semester, like right when school was getting let out for the summer. It was my, I
Okay.
think, year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was pretty heartbroken, but I really wanted to be back with my friends, and so I did what I needed to do. And come to find out, once I reapplied, they said, unfortunately, we've decided on the school board that you are not going to be able to come back to school this semester. I found out that another person who got kicked out for something similar was allowed back.
They were
So
allowed back.
yeah, I was pretty discouraged, and I felt like no matter what, I think it was deeper than me breaking the rules. It was definitely, there's something about me that was just threatening to the school, I guess. Or
So you
that's what I.
felt, yeah, you felt like they just thought you were a bad egg kind of thing.
Yeah, and then like it's like this other kid who got caught with, actually, I think he had actually got caught with like an ounce of marijuana in his socks. He was just more socially agreeable and really just more of like what they were looking for in terms of student. I think he had better grades.
Hmm.
Just more
So you felt
social.
like they're really giving preferential treatment to him.
Yeah, I was a difficult kid. I mean, I was a little bit of a I was had a little bit of a spiciness to me, and I was dealing with some mental health issues, but I think, it's like it felt a little bit like, all right, well, you're not worth our our
Oh,
time. We
what was
invested.
it?
It
Yeah.
wasn't that
You
suspension.
you
The
you felt
person,
like you felt like they really didn't value you as much as they valued him.
yeah.
Mm.
I mean, because I had acted out in other ways, got caught prank phone calling, and then, there's other things that
Mm.
I've done. So I understand, but it did feel a little bit like we want good kids here who aren't going to ruffle feathers, and you're just a little bit too much.
You're too much, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, kid, Kim. So let me just summarize what you've told me. You were attending this private Christian boarding school. You acknowledge, and I appreciate your honesty, that you were a bit of a handful. You had an attitude. You engaged in some other rule breaking besides the smoking. And you just didn't have a super extroverted, friendly personality. And you ended up suspended for smoking, and then they wouldn't let you back in. But you also noticed that there was another kid who'd actually gotten caught with marijuana, and they thought that all you did was smoke cigarettes, which is interesting. But he got caught with marijuana, and they did let him back in. So you felt like there was preferential treatment extended to him because he was more of the kind of kid that they wanted at their school.
Yeah, yeah, he was more of the kind of kid I heard,
Oh,
but I heard his parents paid a pretty penny to let him back in.
then your parents didn't have the money to do anything like that. So,
So,
yeah.
kind of kid they're looking for. They're looking for the preppy, like, I come from money types, and I was a poor, like, probably needed to be on, like, I guess we were able to somehow pay the school bill, but it really was tough.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and so you just felt like there was total preferential treatment going on. You felt like it was just you were treated unfairly. And I can see where you'd also feel a sense of shame.
Yeah, I felt like just, I mean, I think getting kicked out of an environment where there's this expectation of being a certain way, and then when you don't match up to that, it feels a little discouraging. And I felt kind of just like, you know, I knew that I think I was trying to be kind of rebellious because I was like, I had some emotional things going on. I didn't know how else to express them at the time.
Hmm.
But I don't think in my core I was a bad person. I think I had a really good heart.
So
And
you weren't a bad kid, you were just a kid that was struggling and you didn't
right.
know how to express the struggle. Hmm.
Yeah, and so I think, that's been a lot of my life being misunderstood. And if anything, now it's made me stronger. But at the time, you're really young, vulnerable when you're
Hmm.
like 17 years old. That's
Hmm.
fully developed. So I didn't understand it. It just really felt like deep, deep rejection. And then on top of that, being taken away from all my friends was extremely lonely because I had to like homeschool my senior year. And
Yeah. You did well, though. You did really good grades and you got a job. I was proud of you. But yeah, I'm sorry you went through all that. And let me just ask you a question in closing. We've kind of done the reflective listening techniques. We've shown what those look like. But I would like to ask you an open-ended question, and that is, if you could say anything to those people that did that to you, what would you say to them? Maybe two or three sentences.
I would say I forgive you because it's made me a better person. If I
Yeah.
hadn't had calls, then I wouldn't have been who I am today. And I don't think anything that happens in life, if it's not meant for you, it doesn't end up working out. And so I wasn't meant to graduate from that place. And I was meant to go on a different path, and
Mm.
I had a lot of hard lessons even after that. But
Mm.
I forgive them. And it's taken me like a long, long time to do that. But I would also say, please get your environment set up with more mental health help.
Mhm.
for kids who are struggling. And I'd also say please try to create an environment of inclusivity, because we don't want to reject people who are young and vulnerable.
Oh, I love the balance of that statement. I love the fact that you forgive them, you're extending grace, but you're also like, let me just give you a little counsel here from my own hard experience. Have some mental health, resources available, and
Yeah.
don't shame kids, that are struggling kids, because there might be a gem underneath.
Yeah, and I was a gem. I've always been a gem. And I was lucky enough to have the family and support. But what if I hadn't had that, gotten kicked out? I was living, in a big city, Philadelphia, a pretty dangerous place. If I hadn't had any support, I don't know, it could have gotten a lot worse. It still was pretty hard, but
Yeah.
just you don't want to reject vulnerable people.
Yeah.
At least maybe they could have explained it to me, or just
Yeah.
showed a little bit more sincerity. It felt like a decision they made for, like, to keep their place pure and sacred and dirty and bad. So
It's a little dehumanizing. Like, they could have talked to you like a person.
yeah.
Yeah. Because they were putting a person in a very, very uncomfortable and humiliating situation, and they could have at least reached out and connected with you as a person.
Yeah.
Yeah. I appreciate your courage. You're an amazing gem, and I'm glad you made it through.
Yeah, me too.